If you're 45, 55, or 65 and you think you've got your finances figured out, stop right there, because starting July 1st, the rules are shifting under your feet, and most people won't even notice until the smaller check or the denied claim shows up in their mailbox. I've spent the last few days digging through new legislation, federal updates, and state-by-state changes, and what I found genuinely surprised me. Some of this is good news. Some of it is going to cost you real money if you don't prepare. So stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's changing, who it affects, and what you need to do right now before the calendar flips. Let's start with the big one, because this affects almost every American over 45, whether you're already retired or still grinding toward it: Social Security and Medicare. Now, the headline number everyone's heard is the 2.8% cost of living adjustment that hit checks back in January, adding around $56 a month to the average retiree's benefit. That part already happened. But here's what most people don't realize: the squeeze is ongoing, and it gets tighter as the year rolls on. Medicare. Part B premiums jumped from $185 to $202.90 a month this year, a nearly 10% increase, and that premium typically comes straight out of your Social Security deposit before you ever see it. So that $56 raise everyone celebrated? For a lot of retirees, almost a third of it just evaporated into higher Medicare costs. And the Part B deductible climbed too, up to $283 annually. If you're someone managing a fixed income, this is the kind of thing that quietly eats your grocery budget without you ever noticing the moment it happened. Now here's where it gets more interesting for those of you in your late 40s, 50s, and early 60s who are still working. The maximum amount of your income subject to Social Security tax just rose to $184,500, up from $176,100. If you're a higher earner anywhere near that threshold, you're paying more into the system this year, full stop. And if you're someone planning around the idea of retiring right around 66 or 67, listen closely, because the full retirement age has now completed its long climb. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is locked at 67. That phase-in that started back in 1983 has finally finished. This matters because claiming early, even by a year or two, permanently reduces your monthly benefit, and a lot of people don't run the math before they pull the trigger. There's also something brand new that almost nobody is talking about enough, and it could genuinely help you. If you're 65 or older, there's a new senior deduction of up to $6,000 that came out of legislation passed last year, designed specifically to help offset federal taxes on Social Security income. The catch is that most people won't actually feel this in their day-to-day budget. It shows up at tax filing time, not in your monthly check. So if you're someone who does your own taxes or works with a preparer, this is one you want flagged now, not in March of next year when you're scrambling. And one more thing on the Medicare side that catches people off guard every single year: your premium for this year is based on your tax return from 2 years ago. So if you're approaching 65, or if you're planning a big income event, maybe selling a home, doing a Roth conversion, cashing out an investment, you need to think 2 years ahead, because that income surge can spike your Medicare premium down the road through what's called an income-related monthly adjustment. People walk into this blind constantly, and it's one of the most avoidable financial surprises in retirement planning if you just know it's coming. Now let's shift to something that affects a huge slice of this audience directly, and that's driving. If you're over 65 or you've got parents in that range, this next part matters. Several states are overhauling how older drivers renew their licenses, and the changes aren't all in the same direction, which is exactly why you need to know your specific state's rules instead of assuming. In Illinois, starting July 1st, the age for a mandatory in-person driving test is jumping from 79 all the way up to 87. And the age requiring in-person license renewal is rising too, from 75 to 79. For years, Illinois was the only state in the country that required seniors to take a behind-the-wheel test purely based on age, and that's now loosening significantly. If you've got an aging parent who's been dreading that test, this is genuinely good news. But don't get too comfortable, because the trend isn't uniform everywhere. Other states are moving in the opposite direction, introducing routine vision checks, reaction time screenings, and refresher courses for drivers over 70 as part of a broader push toward standardized safety requirements nationwide. Some insurance companies are already getting ahead of this, offering discounts to seniors who voluntarily complete these refresher courses, framing it as both a safety win and a way to keep their licenses longer. My advice here is simple. If you or someone in your family is approaching one of these age thresholds, call your state's DMV directly this month and ask exactly what's required, because the rules genuinely vary, and assuming your neighbor's experience matches yours could mean showing up unprepared. Let's talk about something that's a little more under the radar, but incredibly relevant if you're 45 and up and still in the workforce. Changes to wage transparency and restrictive employment agreements. Virginia just passed sweeping legislation taking effect July 1st that limits how employers can use your salary history against you and adds new disclosure requirements around pay. There's also a major shift around non-compete agreements, specifically protecting workers who get terminated. Under the new rules, if you're let go without cause, your employer generally can't enforce a non-compete against you unless they're paying you severance or some other compensation tied to it. If you're in your 50s and you've spent years worried that a non-compete clause would lock you out of your industry after a layoff, this is exactly the kind of protection worth understanding, especially if you're in a state considering similar legislation, because Virginia is often a bellwether for what spreads elsewhere. Now here's one that surprised me, and it's specifically relevant if you've got a public service background. In Maryland, residents aged 55 and older who worked as correctional officers, paramedics, or medical technicians will now be able to subtract up to $20,000 of retirement income from their state taxes, a significant jump from the previous $15,000 limit. If that's you or someone in your family, that's real money back in your pocket every single year. And it's the kind of state-level tax benefit that almost never gets covered because it doesn't sound flashy, but it absolutely changes your bottom line. Let's also touch on privacy, because this one affects literally everyone, regardless of age. But it matters more the longer you've had a digital footprint. And most of us 45 and up have decades of personal data scattered across the internet. Starting July 1st, Connecticut, Arkansas, and Utah join the growing list of states with comprehensive data privacy laws taking effect. This means stronger rights for you to access, correct, or delete personal information that companies are holding on you, and tighter restrictions on how your data, especially sensitive categories like health and location data, can be sold or shared. If you've ever wanted to know exactly what data brokers have on you, or wanted the right to have it deleted, these laws are expanding that power state by state. It's worth checking whether your state is one of them, because exercising these rights typically requires you to actually submit a request. It's not automatic. And here's a smaller one that still matters for your wallet: food labeling. Starting July 1st in California, food manufacturers are required to use standardized language on expiration labels. No more vague, inconsistent sell-by dates that confuse people into throwing away perfectly good food, or worse, keeping food too long because the label was unclear. It'll now clearly say, best if used by for quality, or use by for actual safety. If you've ever stood in your kitchen squinting at a label trying to decide if milk is still good, this is a small but genuinely useful change, and other states tend to follow California's lead on consumer protection laws like this one eventually. So let's bring this all together, because I know that's a lot of information, and the worst thing you can do is just nod along and forget it by tomorrow. Here's what I actually want you to do this week. First, log into your Social Security online account and look at your actual benefit statement. Don't go off what you assume your number is. Go off the real document, especially if you're within 5 years of claiming. Second, if you're near 65 or already on Medicare, check your premium tier and understand whether any income changes you're planning, like a Roth conversion or selling property, could bump you into a higher bracket 2 years from now. Third, if you or a parent is an aging driver, call your state DMV directly this month. Don't wait for a renewal notice to arrive and catch you off guard. Fourth, if you work in a state with new wage transparency or non-compete protections, especially Virginia right now, Read the actual text of what's changing so you know your rights if your employment situation shifts. And fifth, take 10 minutes to check if your state has new data privacy protections taking effect, and look into submitting a data deletion request with major data brokers. Because that data has been sitting out there for years, and most people never bother to remove it. The theme running through every single one of these changes is the same. Nothing here happens to you automatically in your favor. The tax deduction won't apply itself. The Medicare premium surprise won't warn you in advance. The data privacy right won't delete your information unless you ask. Every single benefit on this list requires you to take one small action, and every risk on this list can be avoided with just a little bit of awareness. That's really the whole point of staying informed like this. It's not about anxiety. It's about making sure you're the one steering your own financial life instead of getting steered by rules you never knew existed. I put a lot of research into pulling this together because I genuinely believe people 45 and older deserve clear, no-nonsense information instead of confusing legal jargon or scare tactics. If this video helped you understand even one thing you didn't know before, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel because I'm covering these law changes and financial updates every single month. And you do not want to miss the next one. Drop a comment and let me know which one of these changes affects you the most. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.